Yeah.
It is 7 o'clock. Okay, I'd like to call this meeting to order.
You call the ring?
Adoption of agenda.
Shh. Hello. Somebody adopt the agenda?
I will.
Second? Sure. You?
Okay, introduction of light items. We have 8.7.
Will we adopt the minutes, please?
Oh, sorry, thank you.
Recommendation that council adopt the minutes for December 4th, 2019 regular council meeting.
Second.
I'll second.
All those in favor? Any opposed? Okay. Introduction of light items, 8.7, elected officials training, and 9.10 and 9.11. Second to
I'll
add
second.
later in. All those in favor? Motion carried. Public hearing none. Delegations.
You're up, ladies. Oh,
The
recommendation.
council hear the delegation for urban systems on boundary extension. Second.
I'll second.
All those in favor? Okay. Go ahead. Thank you. Welcome.
So my name is Emma Greendale, and I'm a junior planner and an engineering training for urban systems. And Katrin Saxby is our community planner, and so she's helping me out with this presentation. So we came in April of this year, 2019, and we had done more of a boundary extension 101 presentation with council. And so that was to review what had been done in the process. I can go over the outline. So we recapped boundary extension options, and so what it looks like from a provincial standpoint, whether we do a boundary extension or a boundary restructuring. We talked a little bit about how the official community plan and the zoning bylaw play into boundary extensions. And we talked a little bit about the Agricultural Land Commission and what agricultural land reserve area is around Pouce Coupe and how that would play into a boundary extension. And we talked a little bit about the South Peace Comprehensive Development Plan and what came out of that in terms of what the ALC will let out of the ALR around Pouce Coupe and what the plans from that were from 2007. And then we had a few other considerations. So for this presentation, we'll talk about, just recap from that a little bit and then go into some considerations and thoughts and looking at the two options that were previously outlined. And then what we would like to get from council is a confirmation of if this is still an interest of council's and which areas council is interested in further pursuing. Okay, so talk about this a little bit, the role of provincial government, extensions versus restructurings, and what we want moving forward. So here's the two options outlined. We've got them outlined in the boards as well too. So option A is west of Pouce Coupe, and then option B is to the northeast. And then the dotted lines, or they're not dotted, but the sort of faded out lines are options. We can either go to the boundary line there, or we can go above and do the full, look at the full area. Yeah. So this is Pouce Coupe's OCP overlaid on it. So you can see that option B touches some agricultural land to the north, industrial land and civic land to the south. And then option A touches on agricultural land to the east and residential land to the east. And so that residential land, that is undeveloped right now, but that is where the West Pouce is from the West Pouce Comprehensive Concept Plan. And so there's the zoning, fairly similar, especially for option B. Again, agricultural to the west and industrial to the south, with the civic and parks to the south as well too. And then option A to the east, that's the same agricultural land, and like I said, that's where West Pouce is, but it's agriculturally zoned right now. as the ALC is concerned, all the land we're looking at in these two options is still currently in the ALR. And so that would have to be a conversation with the ALC of whether that land is to be pulled out of the ALR if we do want to develop it into industrial land. As the purpose of the boundary extension was for the village to be pursuing more industrial development. So for the Southeast Comprehensive Development Plan, in the 2007 plan, the ALC had slated land for removal. So one of them was what is now West Goose. They slated 90 acres for the village to pursue residential development, as well as industrial development, so 40 acres of industrial development. But the ALC has said that it doesn't have to be that specific plot too. Mm-hmm. So if we do look at doing a boundary extension, that blue square could be moved either into option A or into option B. But that's the land that the ALC has said, so that 40 acres of industrial and 90 acres of residential, they've agreed to be removed from the ALR. So some other things to think about. We want to be cognizant of the land use around Pouce Coupe, which again is mostly agricultural, and that's reiterated by how much the area around it is in the ALR. So that you want neighboring parcels to ideally have at least complementary land uses, and that you're not impacting too much of the agricultural land or in the farming around the area. All the potential land is currently in electoral area D of the regional district. And the potential land may be owned by private owners or by Crown land, and that'll affect the decision of which land the district or the village wants to pursue. And some other considerations in terms of development would be servicing. So what level of service the district or the village wants to provide to the new development. So roads, your current industrial area is all unpaved roads. So if that's the current level of service, that's what can be provided to the new.
I have a question. The servicing, roads, water, sanitary, storm. Have you looked at A and B? Like the blue area is behind an area that we would have to have sewage pumps or whatever. Is the land lower in the red area where it would be less costly to service that?
Yeah, so we haven't looked at it in detail at this point because the purpose of tonight's meeting is to determine, are these still the valid areas from a previous conversation? When was it, like a year? Year and a half ago even, when Dave was here? Remember when we were mapping these all out? Is it just one area? So we have not done that analysis. The other thing is, any estimate would be so high level because it would totally depend on the development and how much and what kind. So it's really difficult to sit there and say, we can make surely some assumptions. Yeah, you're right. If you are on the west side, there's going to be some things you need to consider, which might increase the cost of servicing. Whereas if you're on the east side, it might be easier. You've got your lagoons there, those kinds of things, right, to consider. So we haven't done that yet. Some of that would come through the next phase of this exercise should we move forward. But the other part of it too is some of those costs are also borne by the development. So there's a balance between off-site costs and on-site, the cost that you have to provide and then the cost that the developer has to put in because they want to go there.
Okay.
Yeah. Other considerations are the impact of the Peace River Agreement and the amount of allotted to Pouce Coupe if the industrial tax base is increased. So the way the Peace River Agreement is distributed depends on your population and your industrial tax assessment. And so if either of those two things change, they will impact the amount of money that you're allotted through the Peace River Agreement. And as kind of Katrin said earlier, we reiterated the previous meeting, we don't want to pre-zone, we don't want to develop things before there's a need for development there. Just so that even when you are developing it, you're doing it for the development in place. You're providing the amount of water that is required by the development and sewage that is provided or required by the development. So our big question for council is which of the two areas or sections within those areas do we want to pursue a feasibility study with?
And the feasibility study is really just to determine, does it make sense to go further with looking at a boundary extension, right? This is from the financial side of things,
Yeah.
like from a cost benefit analysis. Does it make sense to look at this further and get into the details, right? Because there's two areas that have been previously identified of interest. Are we looking at both? Are we looking, is one preferred over the other? That was the direction that we were looking for tonight.
Donna, what do you think?
Well, I thought we were going to do that anyways, because we're going to.
Both, or do you have one? You
Well, I
said-
thought that was, the red one was already under the ALR, but I guess I thought.
No, and even your West Coast lands are not out of the ALR. The ALR has identified once you get a rezoning application and you go down that process, like it's going to be developed, that's when it will come in. But until that time, it is in the ALR. And everything around you is in the ALR. And, you know, this area is in the ALR, like you are entirely surrounded. So as I've said in the past, there's a big difference between, you can expand your boundary, great, but that doesn't mean you're developing tomorrow, right? Because they're very different processes.
Just a question. We're allowed up to 40 acres to be taken out of the ALR?
So from the 2007 Comprehensive Development Plan, what the ALC has agreed to is that the village would get 40 acres of industrial land identified for future industrial development, and the rest of it, as Emma mentioned, was identified for residential, which is in West Coos. So the 40 acres, I've had a number of conversations with the ALC over the years, and they've said, look, you know, because nobody, I'm paraphrasing, the majority of people didn't want it where it is, but it was the only way that there was some compromise to get approval to get this plan in place at the time. So there was a lot of back and forth with the Agriculture Advisory Committee that was in place at the time, with the ALC, with the Regional District, with yourselves, you know, Dawson Creek, all the parties at the table at that time. And so that is what was landed upon, that everybody was on the page. And there's more to this comprehensive development plan, we're just showing the Coos context.
Very excellent job in explaining this. My question would be if we have an option of removing land from, or recommending or suggesting or wishing, why would we go outside Poos boundaries when we have such a large amount already within the boundaries of Poos?
That's a great question, right? People didn't want it there, and so the reason this whole conversation started was, okay, if we don't want industrial development here, where else in the village would we want it? And if we don't want it in the village and we need to expand our boundaries, what would be the areas that we would look at? And so some of the things that the ALC had talked about was, well, what about a satellite boundary? Maybe your industrial is somewhere, you know, 5-10 kilometers down the highway or something like that. And that's not really palatable from the ministry's standpoint, the ones who approve boundary extensions. They don't like satellite boundaries anymore. And I think Doug Fleming had spoken to that when he was here for some of our very early conversations. So it came back down to, okay, well, if we're just going to look at 40 acres, fine, but let's look at it from a more strategic perspective. And if we were to expand the boundaries of Coos, what makes sense? And that's where those two options came from. And it was for more than just the industrial, but it was like, if we had to expand the boundaries, what makes sense? But you're right, you have vacant land in the community that is available.
Correct.
Thank you, Madam Chair. To add to that too, Councilor Katrina and I have spoken about that, you know, in the context of the large amount of vacant land we have in town. And we feel it could be an uphill battle with the ministry to convince them that we even need a boundary expansion in the first place, because there's darn near 200 acres that's essentially sitting vacant. Previous council had felt, because that was sort of landlocked with, you know, a very small number of landowners, so that large green parcel, for example, is a single landowner. So essentially nothing happens until, you know, that family chooses to subdivide or
If
do
I may,
something.
Barb, just to respond, I would be in a conflict of interest if it would ever come to a vote and I would have to remove myself.
Yeah.
But it was just a question of
Yeah.
knowledge.
Yeah, and we feel the ministry might come back and say, well, guys, why do you even need a boundary expansion? Just have some deeper negotiations with those folks already where the land is existing, so.
And certainly not just the ministry. I'm I jump into also that ALC, because that's one of the biggest things that they look at is the supply and the demand. And so the reason that you're able to even have a conversation about industrial land is they recognize that you do not have industrial land within your community that is available, right? And so yes, you're absolutely right. You have lots of vacant land. You don't have anything identified for industrial at this point. And even if you take this out of the picture, where would you put 40 acres of industrial land? So that's some of the, where these initial preliminary ideas and thoughts came from, was like, okay, well, if we had to put it somewhere, we want it close to the village, and where would it go? And there's pros and cons to both sides, obviously.
Marlene?
Yeah, I'm just in awe. And what with these landowners, you have to wait for them to decide to sell or?
There's different processes available to that. I mean, ideally you want them to want to come in, right? And you know, there was a time where the ministry looked at things from a strategic perspective, and the municipality would put forward an application for a boundary extension. And this is for in the strategic best interest of our community, here's why, such and so forth, and the ministry could approve that. They have, and I've lived through this, changed their tune literally in the span of a month, where now they look at it very much as a numbers game, how many landowners want in and how many want out. So it makes it very difficult in some instances to proceed with that if you have property owners that really do not want to be within the municipality. So, you know, the short of it in terms of answering the question, I don't know how they're going to look at either of these options from the landowner perspective, but my gut says they will look at who's in favor and who's against. And when we had put together the work program for this, we thought, let's do the numbers feasibility, if you will, see where that lands before we even go talking to landowners, right? Because if it doesn't make any financial sense for the village to undertake this, why would we even bring it up with them at that point, or prior to that, right?
Yes.
I'm erring on the side of caution in this whole exercise and endeavor, right? Just, yeah.
I would think that the area closest to the blue and the yellow there is already residence. And this is for proposed industrial area. So you wouldn't want to have blue because you're closer to that residential area.
Planner in the making. I find it,
So I would think of the two areas, the red would make more sense.
but it depends where you were to locate that industrial, right? So the two initial concepts was this piece, because this is a lovely wetland, so it could require some extra infrastructure, right? So that's why this line is here, because this was the initial frontage along the highway. You know, if you put industrial up here, maybe it makes more sense than right here, right? So those are things to consider. This was also identified. I can tell you that the ALC likes this option, like in high level, just sort of theoretical conversations, because it's contained. The ALC is very cognizant of the fact if they allow anything out south of Highway 2, it sets the stage. Because then the next person will ask to come out, and the next, and there's nothing stopping that from coming out down here. Whereas here, you're very much constrained, right? You've got the creek and the river.
Right.
That's it, you're limited. So, there's, like I said, there's pros and cons to both sides, which is why there was two initial options for consideration.
And from a land use perspective too, you are right near this is the industrial postcode.
Yes.
So
And that was the other.
talking about
this
land
one was
compatibility.
Palatable.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Proximity to the lagoon.
That's right.
Exactly. Yeah, you're near a complementary land use.
And we'd have to pay Darrell well.
What's everyone's feelings to do a vote on this today without our mayor, or do you want to table it till Lorraine can?
Well, this is only for a feasibility study.
Okay, what's everybody's thoughts?
The red zone makes sense.
Can we get a motion for the red as the choice?
Do you guys agree? Like, I'm not making a decision.
Make a motion when we have discussion, right?
Yeah.
Okay, well, let's have a discussion about
So red,
the red zone.
Second,
I'll second it.
Isn't that in Holland?
that's my choice for industrial, because we don't have any left.
We can't do it.
If we say red zone, folks, is it
Is
the
it-
full?
Yeah.
Is
The
it
full.
this or is it this? Because think about the development.
different ones, or
I'd
is it all
actually
one?
recommend that it be the modified, the lower half. This is all river frontage with
Yeah.
steep banks, and I would think there's very little actual.
Does that, oh yeah, that
That's
includes
perfect.
Jab's Corner, because we have
Yes.
a chunk of property back in
We've
That's
got,
right, I
yeah,
think
we've got a
that's-
little chunk
yeah.
of property in here somewhere. But, I mean, this could be future residential development as well, it might be nice, but if if the pitch to the ministry is for industrial purposes, there's not a lot of industrial.
And who else would grab it if we only go to the
To John's
Other-
Corner, yeah.
Jab's Corner? Then
Well,
that's future council
for strategic planning, right, I can see Dawson coming up and grabbing all that. So if we took right to the Snake Pit Road, there's no way they're gonna hop behind our border and take what's in between what's, proposed and where we currently are.
That is
So
so
for
true.
future growth,
Dawson has a lot of vacant land as well, and they've also recently expanded their boundary to the west. They've taken in, I think, 3 extra quarter sections around the Hart Highway and the DGR, and also south of where the corner is by Walmart there. They've taken in some around there, and that was fairly recent.
yeah, see,
So
they're
they
growing.
have lots of vacant land, right? They have the whole sustainable neighborhood.
Yeah, but that's Dale, not Mayor Bumstead. My goodness. Don't give him no opportunities.
You see,
So-
our water line comes down that,
The backside, right
the
here.
backside, yes.
Yeah.
So in saying that, folks, is it full option B, including the river area, or modified option B?
Full.
Well, let's take both,
That's both pieces, both reds.
both reds.
This and this.
Yeah. I mean, we can shoot for the stars, couldn't we?
You absolutely can.
Is there any interest in looking at the blue option as well as option B, or do you want to stick to the red?
Couldn't do that to our residents.
But how are we going to tell our ask for industrial there in the blue area when our industrial, like,
It's across the road.
you don't
Yeah.
want two industrial, I think the piecemeal, our whole community has been piecemeal through the past. And that's why we have an industrial right across from our school.
Yeah.
So,
And part of it, if I'm remembering those initial conversations, one of the reasons this was appealing was just that direct access to the highway. I mean, you have it here, but you have a railway in here as well, right? And I mean, obviously the crossing is torn up, but you still have this, and so that makes access to this from the highway certainly more challenging than, that, right? Which is always very important to industrial development is highway access often. So that's where this shape came from, was access to the highway. A little bit more tricky here, but you do have this road here, and so there's, it's all how you design it and how you lay it out, which is way down there, right?
what would be wrong with looking at both at this point? Because there's only maybe 3-4 residents in that red section, or maybe 5, that would be included, and they could say no. You've got Jabs, Kendrew, Jones, and
Pender.
so what I'm thinking is, if we get rejected there, it might be a done deal. How many people are on the blue side?
2.
So is it feasible to look at both?
And this is what's entirely up to you, and that's why we're here today, right?
Like, I'm not a fan of the option saying A or B, I like that, but it has to be industrial.
Well, yeah,
Let's
that
trade
was
someplace
the
else.
catalyst for it. So just keep that in mind, right? Just because the whole area is being looked at, we're not saying the whole area would be industrial. The catalyst was, okay, nobody wants the 40 acres of industrial across from 50, thank you, that's what I was thinking. Right, nobody wanted it across from those homes.
Yeah.
So, and the ALC said, yeah, you're right, that makes a lot of sense. Okay, so where else would you guys put it? I don't know, let's look at a boundary extension. So that was the catalyst, right? And so from there, it did morph into, well, if we're gonna take some land out of the ALR, let's think beyond just 40 acres of industrial. Let's think about our future, the growth of our community in the future, right? Because you can have a big boundary, that doesn't mean you have to develop it. But then, does it make sense for you to have a big boundary if it's undeveloped?
Thank you, and part of the catalyst for that too, Councilors Overruled, way back early in these discussions was around the concept of self-sustainability for the building. On the assumption that, you know, the Peace River Agreement, you know, could theoretically at some point come to an end. How does the village achieve self-sustainability? Generally, industrial properties are anywhere from 4 to 6 times the taxation rate of residential properties. So the discussion there was, if we're gonna get to a self-sustainable point, building homes at, you know, what is one of the lowest taxation rates in town isn't gonna get us there. We need some of those high tax revenue properties.
I think once you consider the rate of growth of this community, particularly compared to other communities within the province, you would see us having to put a secondary school up there to service our kids that are coming into school, or even a second elementary school. You know, the school board wants to put them all into these temporary dwellings, whatever they call them. Portables, right? Well, we're gonna need a second school. School board, BC school board, you cheap people. We need school.
Oh, sorry. I didn't block it.
Okay, can I get a motion to go back past 15 minutes so we can continue?
Make a motion.
Ken seconds it.
We tried.
Okay,
So are we gonna vote on the red? Is that what we're doing?
I think my thoughts is to look at both of them.
So you would
No.
have to defeat the original motion, then, or can she amend that motion?
I can amend it.
Well, 6-1, that's not the other good, however you like. Defeated is better.
No, but what's everybody else's?
We can always try.
I just want a clarification. Then if we are looking at the blue, do we want to look at the full blue or the the partial blue?
The wetlands are there. Why would we want that?
Yeah, just the,
Yeah.
Okay.
Just the L.
Okay. Just to confirm.
The L for the
The L.
for the land.
I make the motion that we look at both. Does everybody want to second that so we can discuss it? Okay.
Is there an increase, or is there, what is our financial responsibility for doing these feasibility studies for the village?
Nothing, until we get it out of it becomes in our boundaries, we're just looking at it.
Okay.
That's the way I would say it.
Yeah, the cost of the feasibility study and urban systems time to put that together.
Which was, I think, in the
Yeah,
budget
there's
for
already
this year.
an
Yeah.
approved budget line item for that, Councilor Grover. For this year.
I like it.
You like it? Okay, all those in favor, raise your hand. And opposed?
Is the other one defeated then? Is that what
Yes, yes. Oh, I think, yes, yeah.
So just to recap for us, so we went with the right things. We said, oh, crap, I'm wearing that.
Full red.
All of
red,
it,
partial
partial
blue.
blue. Yes, that's.
No wetland.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Thanks so much. Thank you for your time.
Thank you guys. Well done.
Anytime.
Appreciate that.
Okay, we'll move on to that.
We're gonna call the reading. She's gonna join now.
Yeah, please, if you. Yeah, okay.
Chris, can you send that to me? That powerful?
Yeah.
How are you guys? Good. You're all good?
For sure. Can you hear everybody?
Yeah, I can hear everybody.
Okay, we're moving on to number 7, unfinished business and business arising from the minutes. 7.1.
Oh, Barb's in there?
Yes.
Oh!
That
The council received, oh, okay.
That council receives the letter from the Minister of Environment declining to come to a council meeting as information.
Second.
Yes.
Well, he did pass this off to someone else who would be interested in attending. Now, but this is all with regards to burning in the village bylaws and our citizen being read to right.
Yes. Do we want to pursue that for them to apologize to that resident?
Well, I no,
Oh, okay.
because we have no full understanding of their side of the story. You know, and it sure would be nice to know.
So, Chris,
Hello?
hey, did that guy receive that fine?
I've had no correspondence with him past, you know, the last conversation I had with him was shortly after the Dawson Creek news article, and, you know, he was put off that had happened, and I'd asked him to keep in touch with us if there was anything else he might need from us, and nothing bubbled up, so I can only assume they maybe let it go.
Can you reach out to him and find out if he has heard anything from the ministry?
Yeah, sure can.
Okay.
Do we want to reach out to Mr. Environment with another letter saying that we need confirmation for them to come speak to us so we can move forward with our burning pit bylaws, so we can follow the environmental blah, blah, blah?
I'm sure they'll tell us to advise to read the website is what they'll tell us. We can always try doing that.
Okay, Sandy, sorry.
So if you see in the letter, they've said that they've recently amended the open burning smoke control regulation with new things that went into effect on Sunday.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Well,
Now,
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. I think part of the issue with this item too, Council, is that we were going right to the minister or the mainstream. You know, we might have had better success trying to ask for a staff member who specializes in that legislation or something to that effect, but, you know, I think to Sandy's point too, the new piece of legislation's out there, so we're likely just to get directed to that and do your background homework, guys, and get from there, so.
so we don't want to pursue this any further? Councillor Grover?
what about, who was the representative who came onto village property and spanked our resident?
Conservation officer.
Why can't we get him?
He told me flat out at the counter that this was a learning experience for him as well, and he'd been assigned the file and was doing the best he can to investigate. He was about as green in it as the rest of us were.
So maybe we could invite him to a closed meeting where there's no public, you know,
We can't.
spankings. No?
No, we can't.
We can have the Environmental Protection Division come and do a presentation, it says.
So, well, why not?
Yeah.
Yes.
that might be-
Are you making that motion?
Yes, I would like to make that motion.
Second?
Second.
So what was the motion that you're doing, Ken? I can't quite hear you.
The motion was that the representative, the head of the air quality section,
Environmental Protection.
environmental protection, that we invite him to a council meeting to discuss the recent changes in the Environmental Assessment Act.
Okay.
All those in favor?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
okay, so we're moving down to new business, 8.1.
The council received the updated draft wage loss reimbursement policy information and consideration.
Second?
Sure.
Any discussion?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, when you, when wage loss is being considered, if someone's taking their holidays, they receive holiday pay, and that, is that considered?
No,
No.
that's not,
No?
what- the reason was that we didn't want to be able to have to take our holidays to do stuff.
Yeah, but I mean, if somebody did take their holidays,
That
this
it was
just,
reimbursed.
this, oh, yeah, but I was just wondering, because it didn't say.
No.
It's on a case-by-case basis.
The way they wouldn't get the wage loss reimbursement if they use their holidays.
Yeah.
And just to clarify, this has nothing to do with me. I will not take this into consideration for myself. I am just worried about my counselors. Because there is counselors that are self-employed on council that I feel that need to attend UBCM or NCLGA. I think it's very important for them to attend that, and if they can't afford it, because they lose their wage, I'm all for this.
What I'm not seeing in this document is where this is limited to
So we need to clarify that.
once or twice a year.
Yeah, twice a year, UBCM and NCLGA, which is the important, ones that we go to.
But there could be something come up as I'm in pro FCM.
FCM is more for mayors. I don't recommend all councils go because it is expensive.
But there might be an issue that we want to take.
That's fine, but I still say the two ones that are main that we go to are UBCM and NCLGA. Those two get covered for the wage loss. Not just willy-nilly drive to Prince George because you feel like going to a meeting.
Okay, Chris?
Yeah, thank you, Manager. I think if council would look at number 7 on the policy, all travel requests must be approved by council resolution before any wage loss reimbursement can be submitted.
That
So
covers it.
council has complete and absolute discretion to yea or nay anything that might come up. So
No,
the
I don't
question,
agree with that, Chris.
okay?
Still should just be the two meetings.
Because it's significant time.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a significant, yeah, you're right, Bernie. You're right, I can't speak right now.
Okay,
Okay.
it's up to you guys.
With that addition
Amend the policy or amend the,
to include the UBCM. What I'm interested in is limiting it to once or twice a year. So if we limit it to those two conferences, I'm cool with it.
okay, just a moment, can you say what?
Yeah, thank you, Manager. The councillor asked, well, what happens, I guess furthering your comments, that what happens if a third thing comes up, you know, an emergency meeting with the minister or something along those lines, and the councillor has to take 2-3 days off to fly to Victoria and attend. I can't think of anything for us specifically, but looking at Tumbler Ridge, for example, when the mines shut down. Right, council immediately reacted, sent a delegation to Victoria to meet with ministers and discuss the community
But
crisis.
that's a main
That was
industrial.
completely unforeseen, never saw it happening, right?
But Lorraine went to Victoria
Yep.
in the last year and a half
So,
on a,
so what I was mentioning to Councilor White was this is just a policy. So we can, in the policy, state the two important ones, the UBCM and the NCLGA. If something of a community crisis were to bubble up, council can always choose to waive its own policy. So you're not totally pigeonholed in that respect, so.
okay. So are we going to have a motion to adopt this policy?
With the amendment.
No, because the NCLGA and all that needs to be added to that.
I hadn't finished, sorry, Lorraine. With the amended, including NCLGA and UBCM. I need a second for that amendment. Marnie,
Yeah.
anybody else wish to add anything? Lorraine?
What? I already added mine.
5 cents worth.
Okay, all those in favor?
Yeah.
Motion carried. Okay, we're going down to 8.2.
Recommendation that council decides they would like to continue with the SPCA cat spay and neuter program or request the remainder of the funds to be refunded to the village.
Second,
Okay.
Marnie?
Yes.
My thoughts are, they're not telling us whether those were Poos residents. Do they have any proof that they can give us that the money was used for Poos residents? I'm just throwing that out there.
Yeah, no, that's the same thing I was over.
Well, I know one lady that did get her cat spayed. So, I mean,
Pardon, what was that, Marlene? I couldn't hear you.
I know one lady that did get her cat spayed under that program.
Did you?
So, I mean, for me to know one lady that did that, that's amazing. I think it's worth keeping the program if they're willing to do it.
But I do find it a little bit odd that none of this paperwork even showed up, or they couldn't tell us anything on this $5,000. But then all of a sudden, when Chris phoned the Vancouver SPCA, the head honchos or whoever they were, all of a sudden they mysteriously showed up with this list. Well, I can pull that list out of my ass anytime. I want to know concrete evidence of those being Poosuki resident cats.
And we've been asking for this information for how long, Chris?
Approximately 18 months.
18 months. So they get back to us now after we've reached out to the province? Like, I'm not happy with the communication, our local SPCA, after we've given them money.
And so what are the options? So if we don't use the SPCA, like, does the village offer it themselves where they're taking cats and dogs and?
No, but Chris can reach out to the head guys again and get them to get down to the bottom of this to see where these cats came from, because he can explain the fact that we've been trying for 18 months to get information and all of a sudden free willy-nilly they give us this made-up list. What, 2 days, Chris?
Thank you, Worship. It was actually Sandy that found it, but yeah, we were able to trace back the date of the Excel spreadsheet. Excel's got a function in it that you can look up the date the spreadsheet was actually made, and it was like the day after Sandy had sent in the request. So, and Councillor White just made an interesting observation here too. A significant number of these spay and neuters all occurred on May the 25th. So, and Sandy did ask the SPCA to provide the addresses. They said they couldn't for confidentiality reasons. I'm the privacy officer for the village. I can attest that simply stating the address that this animal came from is not a privacy violation, but we can reach out to them again and see if that information might be available.
When did Southeast test thing close down for that clinic?
In March or April.
March or April, so it was the other vet clinic that supposedly did the spay neutering.
Yep. Well, March or April of this year, so there's only been one cat spayed since in 2019.
So can you reach out to Trevor, Sandy, and get that information?
Who's Trevor?
Trevor Reeves, he owns the Southeast Vet Clinic. Just you just have to dial the old number and leave a message, and he'll call you back. If you can't do it, I will get a hold of him.
Okay.
So the purpose of this program, is it to give village residents a price break when getting their Cats?
Not actually a price break, Councillor Dorr, it's to give them, it's actually free because the village has paid for it up front. So a village resident with a cat, either theirs or a stray that they've apprehended, that they want to have it spayed or neutered, they simply go to the SPCA. I'm from the village of Puscooty, I know there's a program, here's the cat, SPCA has the cat spayed or neutered, hands the cat back, no cost to the.
Does Dawson have a similar program?
I believe they do, and we were pitched this idea from the SPCA because they've taken on a similar program with Dawson, so.
Well, take all of our cats and throw them in Dawson Creek, problem solved.
I think it's pretty,
Order to talk to them, Ken.
I think it's proactive to have this program continue.
I agree.
Yes, especially when you were considering feral cats running around. So someone picks one up and, if they can.
You're talking feral here.
Yeah, I know.
I'm devil's advocate, but the way this spreadsheet and the way they've got back to us, and we've been asking for 18 months. So if we say, all right, keep that other money, they're gonna come back to us next week and say, money's all gone, we used it for the other half of Poos that we didn't do. And we have no verification that it's for Poos residents. We have no verification that this was even Poos residents.
That's true.
So, Chris, can we implement something that they come into the village office and they get some kind of tag that they take to the vet office, and then the vet, then we know that that person's getting a cat spayed or neutered, and SPCA can't just make up names, numbers, and addresses?
Yeah, I think we can definitely, we'll reach out to them and make a second request for that info, your worship, and.
To use it.
See, just to try to get it, but yeah, we can put our thinking caps on and come up with some kind of
I like
check-in
that much
program.
better.
Yeah.
And I agree with Councillor Hebert too. Our frustrations with this wasn't the program itself, or that it made sense, or that it worked. It was the fact that we'd given this organization $5,000 of taxpayer money up front, and then no communication for 18 months as to where that donation went. That seems to have come in now, but council's obviously not quite totally happy with the depth of the information. Leave it with us and we'll see if we can improve that before we go and cancel the program.
Yeah, because I'm fully in agreement with Marlene on this, that we do need some kind of assistance with the cat. But for them just to write down pre-humiliated names, no, they need to work, so the way we have to track it.
I don't know why we're paying for anyone's cats to be spayed. I don't. Right, we're going down.
There was an issue with feral cats, especially Oaksville. A lot of cats. And
So
we were
deal-
trying to cut down
deal
on the
with-
cat population.
Deal with feral cats, not mom and pop's, kitty that they brought home for Christmas.
Councillor.
I had feral cats beside me. It was just a nightmare. And it cost me thousands of dollars with those cats, the damage that they did, and every day. And it was the SPCA that came and helped.
No problem.
Yeah.
Let's pay for feral cats, not a problem.
But
I have a cat at home, my cat's fixed, I paid to get that done.
there are people that can't afford it though.
Yeah, but it is expensive,
Yes. They want their cat, but they
especially
can't
for
afford it.
females.
Yeah.
But I also don't want people going and getting several cats and assuming that the village is going to be paying for it.
Exactly.
That's
You know,
why we should
so-
have to register at the village.
We do.
There you go.
Well, we have one person in Dokesville feeding 15 feral cats, and she's only got 4 registered, so that kind of stuff has got to stop. And we need to worry about this having for them have 1 cat, not 10.
Could we discuss this with our animal control officer, our office staff, and maybe he has an idea? Because he is our animal control officer, how he wants to, does he get do you get a pass from him? If you've got a feral cat, or like, I agree, we don't want just residents, well, I think we'll get a cat, the village is gonna pay for it to be neutered.
Well, nobody owns those feral cats, Bart.
No,
So
but
what's gonna happen is we fix them and then we turn them out loose so that they can't have more babies.
Yes.
SPCA can't take them, they won't take them.
that isn't what I meant. I meant, as a resident, I have a cat, a house cat, but it's not fixed. So I'll just go in and get a permit from the village and they'll pay for my cat to be fixed.
That's what you're saying.
Yeah.
You know, I know there's some situations, but
Well, I'm fine as long as it's just one cat. But if they got 10 of them, no.
yeah.
Do we have something in place that says you're only allowed X amount of cats?
Animal control bylaw says a maximum of 4.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, there you go.
So I get 4 done.
Yeah.
The problem is, Marlene, do they follow or listen to the bylaw?
Well, they're supposed to if they're good citizens. Okay?
Well, you haven't been reading Facebook now.
No, you know I don't do Facebook.
Okay, so what is the motion on the floor?
The motion on the floor is for Chris or Sandy to find out exactly who those cats are before we do the fund anymore.
Second?
I'll second it.
Councilor White seconds it. Any more discussion? Those in favor, raise your hand. One opposed?
One opposed.
One opposed. Okay, we'll move down to 8.3.
That council approved setting the old-fashioned Santa Claus parade on Friday, November the 15th, at 2019.
Second,
I'll second.
any discussion? Councilor White.
Can we have it later than 4 o'clock in the afternoon? Because a lot of people work, right? And they're not gonna be able to get here for that early in the afternoon. A lot of people have said to me that they can't get here for the parade because they're working. And
What about our staff?
Well, we'll just get volunteers to do it.
Yes.
Chris?
You guys don't volunteer.
Actually, I'll pass this off to Sandy for comment, because I think we start the parade around 7, if I'm not
Six.
mistaken. 6.
Okay,
Parade's
it was
usually at 6.
4:30 or something before.
No, the fire starts at 4:30, 4 o'clock. Hot dogs are out there at 4:30. People can, the trucks line up at between 4:30 and 5:30, and the parade starts at 6. The whole idea is that it's over by 7. Because it gets too cold, too dark.
Close dark at 4.
Well, exactly, see?
Sandy, you don't want to hear the mayor whining that it's cold.
Well, there's that too, and it would go past your bedtime if we went past that, so there.
And that's one of those events we commit to as staff too, so it's all hands on deck.
What was that, Chris?
I said that's one of those events that we commit to as well, your worship, so the expectation from staff is all hands on deck for that one.
Yeah.
Okay, motion,
Okay,
let's vote
make
on
a
all
motion
motion.
to have it Friday, November 15th.
All those in favor? Lorraine?
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
motion carried. Okay, 8.4.
The council approved the Christmas holiday office closure for December 23rd, 24th, 27th, 30th, and 31st, 2019 holiday season.
Second?
Someone get a second?
Second.
I'll second if nobody else will.
Okay, thank you. Discussion?
Yes, they can have it.
Yeah.
Any more discuss, okay, all those in favor? Raise. Is that okay? All, none opposed? Okay, 8.5.
The council received email from Ernst Cedar regarding Papa John's dairy information.
Second.
Second.
Any discussion?
Yes.
Makes sense.
Okay, Lorraine?
So, Chris, on that post on Facebook last night, they said that those barricades were sitting on the crosswalk.
Yeah, no, they're not on the crosswalk, your worship, they're behind, no, they're
Just in front of
They're
you.
in front of it, I think. Yeah.
I thought
Here,
they
the
were
barrier,
marked
that
that.
sidewalk.
Yeah, they're definitely not on the crosswalk, I just can't remember. They're offset from the sidewalk about 10 feet.
Okay.
They're offset just enough to allow a truck to kind of pull in there and park and have the box sort of blocking the sidewalk. So we discussed this at the staff meeting today as well, Your Worship, and the recommendation from staff is to actually push them closer to the sidewalk to prevent that from happening, because it's actually been happening quite a lot this summer. Yeah.
Yeah, but how do people walk on there without walking on the road?
No, the sidewalk goes right through there, so we push them up so that they're maybe 2 feet from the sidewalk so that it wouldn't impede any foot traffic or bicycle traffic or anything like that. But that there would definitely not be enough room for a vehicle to park in front of them.
Okay.
Yeah. And staff definitely recommends against moving them halfway into the Papa Don's parking lot, because according to the Public Works Director, the garbage truck wouldn't be able to turn around at that point. We'd have to back up the road into the collector.
And everybody else would?
Possibly, yeah.
Yeah, we know they would. So, continue, Bob.
Okay, so we're not making any motion, we're just accepting the email as information. 8.6,
The council authorizes administration to purchase a 4-way anchor blade for use on a seasonally rented wheel loader for a total cost of up to $40,000 before tax.
second?
You
Okay,
can't
I
second
made
it.
a motion.
Second?
No,
You're not seconding that?
I'm not seconding that.
Can't discuss it?
I will second it just so we can discuss it.
Thank you.
We don't have to discuss it.
Thank you, Madam Chair, just before the
Well,
discussion
we
even
come
kicks
to
off.
end of our road, so.
I put that number in that report because that was the number I was told roughly from an equipment supplier last year for a blade of that nature. I found one online for $21,000. I actually have a quote in my hand here from a very reputable supplier in the Peace region for a blade for $14,900. So we're not going to get anywhere close to that number if council approves the concept.
So
Discussion?
the rental of the loader and the blade are how much, Chris? Per year, So
Yeah.
we're gonna rent it when, October to May?
We're shooting probably mid-October, if not November 1st. Yeah, all the way out till end of April. The issue being that the blade we require to do the driveway berms to keep the residents happy isn't available through John Deere or any other manufacturer that I've been able to find. We can only get just a single regular 2-way angle blade. And it doesn't have the driveway gate thingies to catch the snow and keep the snow berm off. So what we had to do last year was awkwardly backblade it, and we were sending a little John Deere tractor around to do it, and it wasn't the most efficient thing. So in light of that, we came up with a plan to buy the blade and then simply rent the machine around it on the assumption that the blade doesn't depreciate or require anywhere near the maintenance the machine does. So it's to the village's advantage to have the blade, which we could conceivably keep for 10, 15 years, and then always rent a new reliable piece of equipment to move it around, so we meet all the objectives at that point.
So Chris, do you have a total of how much it costs to rent that machine
Yeah.
last year?
Yeah, it's in the report. Your Worship, let me just refresh my memory on that. It was $4,000 a month for a total of $4,000, but because we actually put so few hours on it in the operation, the total cost, we received a credit from Brant for it, so it was $19,600. And what I'd stated in the report is assuming to buy that type of machine, I was given a quote from Brant for about $225,000 for that loader to purchase it new. We're looking at about 13 years as a break-even point, not including any repair and maintenance cost if we bought it instead of renting it.
Yeah, but I'm also looking at the fact that, what about, cost of like hiring nodes or Alpha's Uncle Joe?
Yeah.
Many people have,
Yeah.
graders out there, and I was just wondering how much it would cost if we, actually hired them to do the snow removal
We-
instead of a public works taking it on.
Yeah, thank you, Worship. We did look at at that as an option. We never got any costs because the contractors we approached told us that if we were looking for that in order to meet the village's snow clearing policy and timelines on it, we would have to pay for the equipment to be available on standby for the entire winter. They weren't willing to just pull it off of whatever site they were using it, parachute in here and plow some snow and go home. We had to pay for it to be sitting there waiting for us on a daily basis in anticipation of a snow event. So the most cost-effective thing we could come up with is this rental system here right now.
My concern is, last spring we had a quick warm-up and that snow melted off, that snowpack that was on the roads. And I thought we were very fortunate because I know that was a pretty thick layer on there, and if it had warmed up, melted a bit, and then iced up, it would have been just awful to drive out on those roads. So will this blade make it so that it can clear down to the pavement instead of just top layer of that snow and then packing it down?
Yeah, it will.
Yeah?
Yeah, that's an activity called scraping or
Skating?
No,
It's gonna have ice skis on it?
yeah.
Bring down the road?
Yeah, this blade is snow specific. It can't really do anything else other than snow. It's designed for that, and you can angle the blade sort of laterally like that to get up and under the snow and move it. Part of the reason we rented the size of loader last year that we did was that conversation with the manufacturers. I actually wanted to go significantly smaller, and the manufacturer said, don't go any smaller because it won't be able to lift that compacted snow. We don't get tons of that though, however, because we do clear the roads so quickly after it's done snowing. Like usually it's within 24 hours and we've got every road in town done. But in that interim period, it bubbles up a little bit. So the public works operator that runs it did comment it wasn't as good as a grader though to do that. So it took a little more effort to get that lifted stuff up. But the other advantages we gain to the maneuverability, the speed overall, using it for various things, as I mentioned in the report, a grader sits there. And just to give you an idea of how much it actually sits there, we rented this piece of equipment based on 100 hours a month for that $4,000 price. John Deere typically only rented them for 200, and I negotiated them down because he said, guys, we're not going to hit 100 hours a month. We ended up getting that $4,400 credit because we used it less than 25% of that, so it was literally like 25 hours a month. So if we look at investing in a $350,000 grader, council's looking at that kind of investment for 20 to 25 hours a month of use, 6 months a year, and you've got all that money tied up in something like that. So that's why we feel this rental concept makes sense, because we're actually using it so little, and the break-even period is so far out into the future. One of the issues too that bubbles up with equipment like that is current council makes a decision to purchase it, but it's very difficult for future councils to make the decision to replace it. So a lot of municipalities, the staff are starting to recommend to them that they adopt equipment replacement policies, which, for lack of a better word, forces council to replace the equipment every 5 years. Our current grader is in 1994.
Yes.
Right? And the issue becomes, once you make that $300,000 capital investment, the successive councils don't want to replace it for 307 years down the road, when it really should be time, because, well, we invested all this money and we'll just move it along, and then a big repair comes along, like our grader the other year, $25,000 to repair a piece of equipment that's maybe worth 10 at auction. Whoops, well now we spent 25, so we can't replace it next year because we just put all this money into it. We've got to keep limping it along. And eventually you find yourself with a piece of machinery that's equivalent to a classic car that you're plowing the streets with. So with this concept, we've got the blade, you know, the least depreciating part of the whole equipment is ours, we own it, and then the equipment that is vitally important to meet our commitment to the residents that plow the streets, we get a brand new one every season. It smells like new. And away we go.
So is the grader still in operation, or is it?
We still have the grader, we're limping it along, and we've just kept it, because there's so little value to it if we actually send it out to an auction. And we do use it in the summer to plow the alleys, or to sort of grade the alleys. So we're keeping it. Yeah, we're keeping it, but according to the public works staff, the front end on it's shot, the bearings are finished, that turntable isn't quite round anymore, so when the blade moves, it's got a notch in it, and it's 30 years old, it is what it is. So, and I think the important thing to consider in this is no matter what we do, there's gonna be cost to snow clearing. It takes big fancy equipment to clear a town of snow. How do we do that efficiently for the least amount of cost to the taxpayers? My belief is this is the system to go with, for the reasons I mentioned in here, so.
Councillor Grover?
The 14,000 is a far cry different than 40,000. The argument, though, on its premise remains the same. We're going to spend $14,000 of the community's money. Okay. But you know what? With all the snow that we're going to get, maybe next year, instead of a loader, I don't think it really served its purpose. Maybe we really do need to look at renting a grader. So next year we get a grader, and then we're left with this blade that we paid $14,000 for, and it's left sitting. Can we not rent that blade somewhere? Why do we have to purchase?
Councillor Beaver?
Well, that's the dilemma that I'm in, like, if this loader doesn't meet expectations, we're stuck with the blade if we have to upgrade, right?
That was part of the logic in testing the waters with a full rental last year. We knew that angle blade we were given wasn't going to be what we were looking for because it didn't have the gates. We knew that right off the bat. The concept last year was to test it in general and see if it works.
Yes.
The staff are confident that with the proper blade now, we can meet our snow clearing objectives 100% with that blade.
How much was it per grader to run, Chris?
I haven't actually looked at a grader, your worship, just because the wheel loader meets the objectives of the snow clearing, plus gives us clearing the ditches in the spring, loading and unloading sand, loading and unloading other materials at the public works site, bucketing the snow.
We still have the Bobcat, right?
Nope, we don't have a Bobcat, your worship.
Or loader thing, whatever that thing was.
The back, we've got the backhoe.
Backhoe.
Yeah.
We still have the backhoe.
Yeah.
That can unload and move snow and do the necessary things that it needs to do.
It can, but the wheel loader moves 2.5 times the volume of snow per bucket that the backhoe does. And we found ourselves working with both machines in tandem pretty much the entire winter.
Councillor White?
Well, it worked last year. I can't see why it wouldn't work again.
My thoughts are that we have staff that have looked at, and you're coming to recommend us do it this way. We do have to remove snow, whether it's 2 inches or 6 feet. And our staff is telling us this works out well, so I'm for this decision.
And if it snows like it's rained all summer, we're going to be inundated.
Chris, what about renting a loader or a grader all year long? Rental purchasing a grader all for, like, have we looked at rental purchasing a grader? We need a grader, let's look at rental purchasing a grader.
Yeah,
We're throwing money out the window by renting a loader that we only use, or we use 8 months of the year. Why can't we rent a grader? We need a grader to do our back alleys. We need a grader for everything.
Yeah.
So why can't we check out the prices on leasing a grader?
So we can look at that, your worship, but I'd actually respectfully suggest we get less use out of the grader than we would the wheel loader. So we grade the alleys twice a year, and I believe that's actually in one of the council policies. And then the rest of the time, the grader stays parked in the public works yard. Part of the concept with renting the wheel loader for just the winter season was that we were only paying for the months we actually needed it. And when we were done, we handed the keys back and looked forward to a brand new machine in the next snow clearing season. So the grader ends up spending 97% of its life sitting in the public works yard, waiting for that 2 days a month we might end up using it, whether that be summer, winter, fall, or spring.
Well, they used it all the time before plowing that snow.
Yep.
I don't know why it all of a sudden changed.
No, it'll definitely plow snow, your worship, and I can look at that too. I mean, it's council's decision for sure. But yeah, my from what I've observed and from what staff are telling me, the loader gets more use than the grader does. A grader is a very, very specific piece of machinery. It does one thing.
And we only have one man to drive it.
And we only have one man to drive it, exactly.
And with a little bit of history, in '94 when we purchased the grader, we had gravel roads. There were an awful lot of gravel streets and we used it
Yeah.
all year round. So it did have a function, but that might be outlived.
And I think to sort of tie in what council had said earlier about hiring someone to do that, you know, if we get to the point where our grader is fully done and becomes a safety hazard, or the motor lets go or something, you know, we can then look to easily hire a contractor for 2 days to come in, blitz the alleys, do elevator road, we're done. And again, then we don't have a depreciating asset that we're required to maintain sitting there baking in the sun and losing value every day.
But we also have to fix the front end of that grader, Chris, knowing the fact that those bearings are gone in that grader. I am not consciously happy the fact that they're going to be running that grader with those bearings gone.
Okay,
So that will have to be on the top priority to fix.
okay.
And do we need a special license to operate the grader?
There's no licensing in that space, Councillor Smith, but a grader is a really delicate piece of machinery. I mean, personally, I've got almost 10 years of running heavy equipment myself. I probably couldn't drive a grader down the street if somebody asked me to do it. It's a big, tricky, clunky piece of machinery. The wheel loader, our Director of Public Works, who's a Class 1 truck driver, was plowing and loading snow with it this winter without an issue. So, you know, the grader, as the mayor kind of suggested, we have one staff member who's able to run it. Nobody else will touch it. The loader, we have 3 staff members that can run it if and when needed on any given day.
And the motion that we have on the floor is as stated in the agenda, correct? That's the motion. Does anybody want to amend that motion?
Yeah, total cost up to $40,000, no, $15,000.
If 15 wouldn't be sufficient, Your Worship, the price quote I've been given is 14,900 plus taxes and then a little bit of installation cost. So I'd probably need 25 at the most, and we'll come in at
$25,000?
Yeah.
How does it jump from $14,999 to $25,000?
I haven't been quoted delivery. Installation's been quoted at 800, so we're 15 plus tax, so on and so forth, and anything, a small contingency for anything unforeseen that might bubble up.
I think $25,000 is a gross amount for a blade. Install it, to have it hauled down, and who's gonna haul it down?
The manufacturer, it's sitting in the manufacturer's lot in Winnipeg, Regina, sorry, Regina.
But they will transfer that to a branch, a nearby branch for
Yeah.
free.
That I don't know. I was told there would be delivery cost on it, Councillor Roder, so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure you should be able to pick it up at the local branch.
They've told us that if we go with this, because this is the same company we're renting the loader from, so we'll get it bolted on, ready to go right off the low bed.
Okay.
Yeah, but I don't wanna have to pay for it coming from Winnipeg to Dawson Creek Road.
I'm
They
gonna,
should have a backhaul to to Grand Prairie or Fort St. John.
I can talk to them and see what they say.
I would like to interject, suggest that we table this motion till next council meeting with staff bringing us more information, or do you need to know
We need to know,
right now?
it would be better
Okay,
right now.
that's fair.
They've said the 2-week time in the quote here, they need 1 to 2 weeks of lead time. If we wait till next council meeting, or first week of October, we can be getting snow in 2 weeks.
So what is the amendment to the motion that's stated in our agenda?
20 grand.
20 grand?
Yeah.
And that's not enough, is it?
I'll need that.
Okay.
Okay,
I'll make the
so
motion.
you second the amendment by Mayor McKetty?
Yeah.
Okay, the motion on the floor is the amount is changed to 20,000, not 40,000. Any more discussion? Those in favor, raise your hand.
Yeah.
None opposed, motion carried. Okay, we go on to 8.7, elected officials training. Does somebody want to state the motion to look at this item?
Make a motion that we look at the training, elected officials training for EMS.
Second?
So I'll second.
Okay, discussion?
Put me down, Sandy.
I already registered you.
Yeah, I'll go. I've done it before, but I'll do it again.
So you know it's 2 days, right?
Yeah.
And so you will stand in front of the camera and I'll just go home.
Hi, Sandy, that's the email that I sent you.
Yes.
Did you contact us to see if the other council members are allowed to go?
No. Oh, it's for all elected officials. It says it's for all. I read it. It's for everybody.
Yeah.
But there was a limited space, right?
Well, they need numbers before they can confirm where it's gonna be,
Right.
is what they're looking for, so.
That,
Any more discussion?
Anybody else want to?
Those that wish to participate will reach out to Sandy and let her know. Okay, motion, all those in for the motion? Okay, motion carried. Okay, we're going down to correspondence. Is there any?
no, yeah, we have late items.
That was the late item. The other
Oh,
ones
we
are-
have another one. No.
There's another one.
They're 9, 10, and 9, 11.
Are they correspondence? 9, 10, 9, 11 are correspondence?
Yes.
So I was under
Yes, they're
correct.
part of correspondence.
Okay. Does anyone have any items in the correspondence that they wish to address? I have a couple.
Yeah, I want that one too.
Okay. Marlene?
9.6, recommendation that council receive the correspondence on International Day of Older Persons as information. And I would like.
We need a second. to
Oh, right.
Second.
Okay.
And I have to look at it.
Make a motion for proclamation.
Yes, I would like to make a motion that we have proclamation for the International Day of Older Persons, October 1st.
October 1st?
Yes.
Oh, it'll have to be October 2nd. when we
Oh,
have our
October
council meeting.
2nd.
I need a second for the motion.
I second it.
Okay. All those in favor?
Yeah.
Motion carried. Council White, do you have anything? From correspondence? Council Drover? Okay, this, 9.1, correspondence on the Alaska Highway from, April Moy. And, it's been addressed to Karen Goodings. I'm kind of baffled at how long they've tried to get that as a historical site, the Alaska Highway, as Director Goodings and April Moy has worked long and hard on this. how can we support them? With a letter, with a letter of endorsement that something has to be done? Or should we reach out to Karen Goodings and ask how we can assist in this in any way?
I know, but maybe let's give her a call and ask how we can assist her. I think she's wonderful. And,
So do
a
I.
hard worker.
So should we send a letter to April and Karen from the Village of Pooskoopi wishing we support their endeavors and how can we assist
Yeah.
in any way?
Sure.
Okay, there's a second for that motion.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Yes.
Motion carried. Okay, do we need to address these late items, 9, 10, 9, 11, their correspondence?
No.
No. Okay, so we'll move on to bylaws. 11.1. Oh, no resolutions, we'll move on to 11.1.
That council review bylaw 105, 2018, animal control and licensing.
Second,
Oh, that's a
Discussion?
lot. That's a lot of work.
any discussion?
Good job, Chris.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As long as it says that the dog catchers did not take the dog out of the state without.
He's not allowed to remove it at all.
Remove it from the town until council is aware.
May I comment to that, Your Worship?
Yes.
We brought that up at the staff meeting today, and that, it appears that might be actually more complex than we would think on paper. Only because we're working on some of the stray cats right now. We have 3 in captivity, one.
I'm talking about dogs.
No,
Okay.
animal
Animal,
control.
yeah, we've switched it to animals. It's conceivable that a very advocating cat owner would have an issue with
Keep that in the catalog.
So same situation, just different species. I guess my question to council, is that something you guys want to entertain? Because if we were to apply that literally based on the animals we have here now, I'm probably looking at calling 2 special meetings a week to get authorization from you guys to relocate an animal from town.
Okay, 4 right now.
We have 4.
You're at 4 right now.
So we have 4
We have
special.
4 cats right now and nobody's owned up to them?
Nope.
Why? Because they're scared they'll get a fine?
No, he's captured 4 cats.
Probably because they're strays, Your Worship. But there's no differentiation between a stray and a non-stray if we apply that change to the bylaw. Council's requesting that you guys grant administration and the animal control officer authorization in every case. So we're looking at 4 special meetings to have these animals removed from town. Is that what you guys want to see?
If it's an animal, Chris, that an owner is attached to, I suggest that we talk to council about it. But if it's a feral cat, Sam can do his own discretion with it.
We have no way of knowing, Your Worship.
That's,
But if they're not coming to the table for it, give it another month, give it a month.
Sandy, would you like to say this?
Say what?
I do have,
It's the same thing as what we went through a couple months ago. If you're removing a cat, it's the same as removing a dog.
But you know it's a feral cat, or you know.
No,
it's
you
a
won't,
cat.
not necessarily.
okay,
My cat was a feral cat. He is now not a feral cat. But when I first got him, he hissed and growled and snarled and Prince.
Siamese cats do that all the time.
I miss you, brother, when I'm having a bad day.
We'll put you in the kennel.
You already knew you were Siamese. You already knew you were Siamese.
is there something that we can put in there that the animal control officer consults with our administration and they make a determination? They are communicating, we don't have animal control making a decision on their own. And if they can't decide, then they would bring it to council as a last resort. But you can't be there for every Band-Aid, every animal incident,
Yeah.
bringing it back to council. But I think we should give you, if the animal control officer and you both discuss the options and come to a conclusion, it doesn't have to be brought to council. That's micromanaging our animal control and our administration.
Well, the last one could have been micromanaged, Barb.
Okay, can I say something? Under disposition of animals, number 13, we added a phrase that said, right now it says if an animal other than a dangerous dog is not reclaimed within 96 hours after its impoundment, it becomes the property of the village and the animal control officer may. And before that, it didn't say with the approval of council. What if we change that to say with the approval of chief administration, CAO or council, depending on
What the issue
is.
But we were
Something-
in Williams Lake when you posted that and pictured Sammy, and I had no idea, Chris had no idea. Like, we had no idea what was going on.
Well,
Yeah.
that's what I mean. We would have to consult with Chris, Chris.
And see, honestly, that's one of these cases, folks, I'm not sure my desk wants that responsibility. Because then it's shifted, and how do I know that a week later it's not gonna bubble up that this was somebody's prize breeding cat that just happened to get out?
Well, we've scratched out the line that says that he can, at any time within his discretion, destroy any animal. We got rid of that, so he can't get rid of it. But you gotta find some wording around,
We gotta find some alternative on this.
so I think we have to bring it back. We should discuss it with Sam and see what we can come up with. This is just a draft. This
Yeah,
is-
because coming into the staff meeting today, the premise was sound, we knew what you guys wanted, it made sense. And then we found out that there's actually multiple animals in the village's possession right now, and I got to thinking, oh, literal application of the bylaw, I need a council motion to send everyone to the SPCA or wherever that may be. That's not only gonna be a problem for us, I don't think you guys wanna be coming in here twice a week at noon to make a motion on whether or not a cat goes to the SPCA.
Or a rabbit,
Or a rabbit, or, yeah, whatever.
So, Chris, what about us renting that, room or whatever at the SPCA? Remember, we talked about that.
The good news is, your worship, that Sam's approached the SPCA and he seems to be really kicking things off on the right foot. The relationship seems to be going quite well, so.
They've taken one already.
Yeah, they've taken
One
a
cat.
pregnant one already, so.
So let's just keep doing that. And when the person comes up, that is the cat, we give it back to them.
Councillor White,
I want to bring up another one too, on page 72,
on page 72.
number 3, in brackets, says, "No license fee is payable in respect of a service dog." In brackets, it says, "We want to charge a fee for a service dog." I say, no.
Of a service dog, I don't think we should be asking them to pay, especially if it's a service dog.
But you get a certificate for that service dog too.
Well, they have to prove it's a service dog.
Yes.
You get a certificate with it.
I have a service cat and a snake.
And sleep.
Yeah, okay.
It's really difficult to identify the service dogs. I do work with visually impaired, and I do know a young lady who has a service dog. And she resides in Edmonton, going to university for 10 months of the year. And she's saying now that people are buying these little vests online and packing their pets around, and they're going into restaurants with them, and these dogs are just misbehaving left, right, and center. And now her service dog is put in that same category. And that, yeah, it would be really sad to see someone like her moving into the village and then having to prove that she needs this dog.
But as soon as you get the dog, like you can tell she has a service dog, she's blind.
Yes.
But there's lots of people that get service dogs just to help them cope. And you
Stress
get
therapy
with that dog.
But you can buy those vests online.
I think there is a
Get
difference
training.
between a service dog and an emotional support animal. And your
Yes.
certification is different.
Yes.
So not all our service dogs.
Touche, yeah. But I don't think there should be a cost, no license fee.
And then if you're gonna rework this, does your definition of cat also include feral as opposed to just domestic house cats?
Member of the Felis catus family, commonly known as the domestic house cat, so,
Or feral,
where are you at?
page 70.
Or is
Domestic
that
or
inclusive?
feral.
Maybe we should stroke that language after, everything after Felis catus. I think that's a kind of a catch-all. But to your point, yeah, we're saying Council Road is house cats, so feral cats aren't cats.
Okay, so we should just get rid of,
I like
commonly
it.
known as. That's-
So are we sending that back for,
We have to, sorry,
Go ahead.
this is just a draft. We're gonna be changing the bylaw number because it's, we're not going, we're gonna repeal this one, we're gonna do a new one because it's gonna have to go through the first, second, third readings and everything. So it's gonna come back.
okay. So we've just reviewed it.
Yes.
Okay.
Making sure you're okay with it.
So we're going to carry on administration reports, CAO report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Starting off with Kirkland first. Some members of council may have noticed that one of the sections on 57th that we had paved in the capital project this year was redone. What we found was that the pavement was cracking. We brought that to Peter Brothers' attention. They got to looking at it, and two things are happening over on 57th. One, the reason they warranted that work at their cost was that a layer that was supposed to glue the new pavement to the old, and pardon me if I don't know the exact terminology for it, wasn't applied properly. So what was happening was the new pavement was separating from the old, and we actually had several cracks in it that were like quite wide, cigarette pack wide kind of thing. That shouldn't have happened. However, the manager, Wade, did say that there's a second issue happening there and that the road is settling. So there were areas of that same patch that weren't separating like that. They'd already started to crack because there's a groove forming in the pavement from weight. I know there's a large truck and the mayor is
I've asked several
and you have as well, yeah. So I think at this point, council needs to consider if we're prepared to ban large truck traffic on that road, because Wade told me in no uncertain terms that it's if we continue to allow that, we're gonna get 2 years out of this pavement at most.
Question.
So is there any possible way, Chris, that we can just write that truck driver owner letter?
Yeah, we can definitely track that down, Your Worship. I'd also recommend some signage if council's okay entertaining that idea.
We get a bylaw happening for all these big trucks?
I'm not aware that anything's in the bylaw specifically, but council controls the roads. So you guys can instruct us to place signage stating no heavy trucks on that road. What I expect will happen with that owner is we'll get a significant amount of pushback. You know, we can't discount the fact that this is this guy's livelihood. And I don't know where else he would park that rig if it wasn't in front of his house. But without a doubt, what's happening is it's the weight of that vehicle is causing the deterioration of the pavement.
So I'm gonna go drive a truck and I'm gonna park my truck on 52nd Street.
So Chris, can we talk to him to see if he wants to park there, that then he kicks in and pays for that pavement every couple of years?
Yeah, I can definitely approach him, you know, before we make any firm decisions and just see what his position
Or put
is.
it on title that anybody that buys that house that has any heavy equipment has to pay for the paving in front of that house?
Yeah, and the irony of it is it's actually not in front of the house. The area that was failing is close to the stop sign, and when I was discussing it with Wade, what he felt was happening was as the truck was coming down the road, that's roughly the area he starts applying the brakes with that big heavy truck. and the truck slowing down is causing the 2 layers of pavement to separate and pull apart, yeah.
Previously, that road was posted, no heavy trucks over so so much weight.
Yeah. So, and the
But you have put accidents on the corner, those nice lovely corners the government owns. We cannot, stop those heavy trucks from going up there.
So what I've thought about that too, Your Worship, and even in discussion with Peter Brothers, I mentioned that to them, and Wade said right off the bat, yeah, this is exactly what's causing this road to deteriorate faster than everything else in town. So I think, you know, it is our road at the end of the day, we've got to maintain it. But if and when we run into another situation like that, where the ministry closes the road and diverts traffic for 3, 4, 5 hours, whatever it may be, I think that's the point where we strike while the iron's hot, so to speak, and we approach the ministry and say, look folks, this, you know, here's what's happening, you're sending this traffic, it's impacting us, so we're gonna need to look at improving the grade of this road. And I don't think something along the lines of, you know, ministry pays to improve the base, to make it harder, and we cover the pavement, or some type of partnership there to get it to a point where both people can use it. Because, yeah, with the, you know, according to the experts, without a doubt, it's that traffic that really the road wasn't designed for.
It's an emergency exit, that road, so if they have to direct traffic up there, that, like you say, is a
If
nice
there's an accident,
space.
yeah, if there's an accident on Jabs or anywhere in between, they send everybody, including all the oil field trucks, whatever's on the road that day goes up. What essentially has been designed as a residential street, it's not designed to take.
792.
Yeah.
What is it about this truck that makes it so heavy? What is it?
It's not necessarily the, yeah, he's there every day. I've only ever seen him unloaded personally, so I don't know if he's ever carried a load there. But the weight and momentum of this large low bed coming across that pavement is causing it to separate. I've got pictures if you'd like.
Yeah, but a low bed, that's not something that would damage your road.
But I think.
If it was a loaded,
It continues.
if it was a loaded, is he taking full loads up to his house?
I've never seen a load on the street of the truck multiple times.
But it's there twice a day, driving up, you know.
I-
Residents on that street have
If this,
noticed
you know, if this is a constant problem, maybe it's a situation where the road needs to be upgraded.
Yeah.
I asked Wade that question, to upgrade the road to take highway traffic is into the 7 figures.
Chris, I think you need to regulate this, Trevina there and explain the situation. She'll take in some money, or maybe she'll fix that highway.
We are meeting with the Ministry of Transportation actually at UBCM, so I can add that to the.
Yes.
to the-
Yeah, add that on to the little questionnaire.
Okay.
But I think the truck driver should be spoke to.
Yeah, so in the meantime, I'll try and reach out to the owner and have a chat with him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So are you
He
gonna
works
ban
during the
fully
day,
loaded
so your
RVs?
best bet is to actually probably pull up and talk to him at night. You hear me?
No, sorry, I missed that.
I said he works during the day, so the only time he's home is at night.
Okay.
Is that something our bylaw officer could do?
Yeah, I think his number and his logo's on the truck, so I can reach out to him whenever that's okay.
Yeah.
Okay, ID tags. Staff had an awesome idea, and I think when, it was kind of there when Sam came in. So we're in the process of printing village ID tags for everybody for various events and stuff like that. Minimal cost for doing the whole thing in-house. Photos from.
So the council has, or you're talking just the staff?
Just the staff, yeah.
Okay.
It's more for public works when they're going
Yeah.
door to door.
Yeah,
Not about an
public
issue.
works goes door to door. I think most people in town know our public works folks by now, but it doesn't hurt to have some, so
Identification.
cool initiative that everybody's putting on, so. We heard back from the Ministry of Public Safety about the meeting with the RCMP. The note from them is that it's kind of late in the game to book a meeting now, but to contact the office or the desk on Monday, UBCM, and see what we can line up when we're there, so we'll make a note to do that. On the topic of minister meetings, I'm working on all the background info for council's presentations here. I just want to make sure that I got the topics correct, so if you guys don't mind, I'll go through those. Yes, okay, and yeah, so I'll say,
What was that?
Mike Bernier's extended an invitation to us to want to know if he wants to be, or if we want him to be in all of our minister meetings. Is there anything you guys can think of?
School thing, I'd like him there.
Okay,
BC assessment. Mind you, I went to Mike, and Mike did not show much support for
The BC assessment.
Mike didn't know much before when he was talking to Chris about it either.
well, not that he didn't support it, he'd had a conversation with someone that essentially told him the system's fine, don't touch it, everything works out as it should, so. And I shared some of our concerns with him at the time, and his message was, hey, I'm not an expert, I'm just relaying to you what I was told, so, yeah. Okay, so we got Ministry of Education, obviously the permanent expansion to the school. Ministry of Health, discuss seniors, what services we can get for them in Poos, how can we look after them better, and how do we work with
The
them.
MRI clinic?
Okay,
MRI.
MRI clinic, yeah, okay, MRI clinic. Okay, Ministry of Transportation, the highway, increased traffic and safety for residents, and we'll add to that 57th Street. Street, yeah.
And those, there's some new lights here, I've just seen them at a crosswalk here in Edmonton, Chris.
Yeah,
They have to be wired in, but they're up above the speed sign, and they flash a road light if you're speeding in the way we had flash at me. But yeah, it's pretty drivable.
yeah, just
Maybe we should see if she could put one in the school zone, a couple of them.
okay.
No kidding, yeah.
Okay, so school zone in specific. We've got a meeting with BC Ambulance Service, not a minister meeting, but just BC Ambulance, and that the one we have here is how do we recover some of the cost of these medical calls. Northern Health, we're talking about Peace Haven and seniors care so far.
Can I just stop you there for a minute, Chris?
Yeah.
On that ambulance, can you talk to Leonard about the date and time, because Leonard should be there too.
Okay. And is that one we might want MLA Bernier at? I think he was at it with us
Yeah.
last year too, okay? Okay. So Northern Health, BC assessment, well, we know that's our zoning and classification matter. Ministry of Municipal Affairs, we still have been told we can have a meeting with a staff member, so does council?
Is that BC assessment?
Yeah, that was.
No.
Okay.
We had the guy here from Prince George, like,
This would be somebody above him, it's likely gonna be an assistant deputy minister or something like that.
It'll be at 8 p.m.
And
And I'd like to actually have a conversation with them before the resolution gets read out, or Barb does the beach center.
I don't think it hurts, you know.
Okay.
I think we need to have a conversation with them.
Can't lose anything.
Give them a heads up that we're going forward, because if we just go on the floor and start reading it without them having any idea what's going on,
they know we're coming.
it doesn't matter. You still need to give them some heads up so that we
Courtesy.
do play nice in the sandbox.
Yeah.
Courtesy.
Okay, very good. Our request with the premier was redirected to the Ministry of Forests because we were asking to talk about caribou recovery. And then I also had a note here about the forestry aid package, but I did hear an announcement today that there has been a forestry aid package that was offered by the Ministry of Forests. And it's maybe a little bit of a political statement on my part, but I was actually disappointed to hear what that aid package was, because it wasn't to assist the forestry sector. It was to take displaced forestry workers and retrain them in other areas of the economy, such as green jobs, for example.
Yes, I agree.
Not super sure that's what those folks were looking for.
Yeah, your whole family lives in Chatwin,
Yeah.
and you've been there for 3 generations,
Yes.
and
the mills are
they
shutting
want to
down,
train
but-
you for computer training?
Yeah, or we're all gonna go become windmill technicians, all
Yes.
700.
Because they're counting on that $2.5 million gas plant that's going to be built. So they expect all those workers to work there, but that ain't gonna happen, and we all know that's not gonna happen.
Yeah. So is that something we want to talk to the, I mean, the caribou recovery, I think, is an obvious one, but do we want to add the aid package
Yes.
to that too?
I think, what do you think, Lorraine?
Yeah,
Okay. Okay. And then RCMP, the notes we have here are about how to get more members in the area following the meeting with Damon the other
the
day.
rural area,
Yeah.
the rural
The
area.
rural area. Okay. And then I was brainstorming that with Sandy before the meeting here too. I think it might be, and maybe we want to run this by Damon, but maybe just plant the seed with the RCMP brass that we're actively supporting this, that we're endorsing it. that It's coming down the pipeline, and letting them know sort of ahead of time.
And again, Leonard needs to be in on that one too.
Okay.
Did you have your meeting on Tuesday?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Is there anything to report from the meeting?
we will let you know what the council are talking.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Okay. So that's minister meetings. Good stuff. Let's see. Minister meetings. Welcome sign going in by the end of next week for the 2 of them. So that's good. Post office door was happening today.
Right, oh, the back door?
Yeah, the back door, so there's a brand new shiny door there as we speak. The skating rink, we hit a hiccup with the grant. NDIT does offer a grant, however, the grant is contingent on the village being able to demonstrate that the money provided by NDIT will increase revenues for the village.
So we thought, Blair and I
Yeah,
talked
like
about
my
signage.
graduate, people buying things and hot chocolate, shit like that.
We also talked about putting advertising on the wall.
Yeah, so we brainstormed it at the staff meeting there too, that came
Yeah.
up, and then the idea of putting a donation box at the rink.
No.
Well, that'll get broken into.
No, we're actually talking about cutting a slat in the building, the little storage building, and putting rink donations. Long story short, we will be disqualified for the grant if we can't demonstrate that we're getting some kind of revenue for NDIT's investments.
So then you ask graduates if you could put one in the weed store, because the kids want, the kids want to go skating and the kids and the parents
The
want.
kids can't go in the weed store.
No, but the parents can. And then the alcohol store, well, they really don't want to deal with the kids, so send them over to the rink. And then graduates, well, they just go there, they can and stuff like that for the kids. So, hey, put them all in there.
So the advertising is an option that as a general concept, I think we need council approval though to do both of those things, if you guys are
I have an
okay.
issue with the donation box.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't have any issue with doing advertising on the wall.
Oh, no.
Okay.
But
I could care less about the donation box. People want to donate for our rink, because people use that rink from all over.
And we've definitely
You know
stepped
that
up
thing.
our game, we Zamboni it now, it's lit, it's constantly maintained, so we're providing a pretty quality outdoor facility for no cost right now. I can see some folks wanting to donate too, actually.
Exactly.
Yeah.
What am I sticking my plant in the chair? A donation box inside the doors here would be fine, but we put a donation box out there by the rink, and it's gonna be cling,
Vandalized.
cling, smash, cling,
Vandalized.
cling. It'll be vandalized constantly.
Okay.
But we could do a promo in our newsletter that we're taking donations for a skateboard park, and we could have where we say we want $5,000 or whatever and have a little thermometer saying, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Blah, 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 that we're trying to get donations.
Yeah.
Whether it's corporate or private or whatever, but not a donation box sitting out.
Okay, and I'm not sure NDIT is gonna worry too much about where the box might be located, but like I
Or
say,
that generates funds.
their criteria is that somehow. there's-
I'll take a box at the office, Chris.
Yeah, there we go, and that's all I'm asking for is that council's okay with us saying that in the grant. If we say so, we've gotta set it up somewhere, so,
There you go.
yeah, okay.
We have lots of P2P residents.
Okay, perfect, so we'll go with that, and hopefully that'll, we'll do some creative writing in that respect. Cold storage building for the sand here, all of the blocks are in. Blair has told me that CRS has approached us, and I've given him the green light to go ahead and do it, but just to let you guys know, CRS is got a big pile of sand in that building. They do need to keep the yard plowed for a run around it just to access the building so they can go do fire checks and inspections. They've offered if we're willing to just plow one, not the entire yard,
Yeah.
one track around the building so they can get to it, we can come help ourselves to the sand here this winter. So,
Yes.
yeah, that's.
So Chris, did
Yeah.
you, write them a letter thanking them for the offer and we greatly appreciate it?
Yeah.
And their years of service to our community, their
Good.
past.
In the past.
Okay. Okay, that will happen. That one I'm actually gonna skip over. Signs again, town hall square. Community center, council, you guys remember we asked to order all new glasses and bowls and stuff for there. That's all been done. We've had a couple of broken ones, but for the most part, they're okay. Dawson, just to let you guys know, the Dawson Creek water agreement comes due next month. So council can expect some correspondence from the city of Dawson Creek to enter into negotiations for renewing that. Some staff advised that some of the water shutoffs and the hydrant shutoffs are not working, so Blair's gonna be working to fix that stuff here before winter, do all the testing. Pauline came up with something pretty cool. She got a hold of the District of Hudson's Hope newsletter. They do business advertising in their newsletter for pretty nominal fees, but it would seem to help cover the cost of the.
Papa Don's Pizza.
But I think Pat Taylor does the same thing, Chris, too.
Do they? Yeah, okay, Sandy's nodding her head, yes. How does council feel about us coming to you guys with a newsletter advertising policy here to help offset some of the cost of that stuff? Yeah? Okay.
I'm fine with that. I thought you sent an email around for that.
Yeah, it was probably in the CAO report, yeah.
No, you emailed me and asked me about it, and I thought you sent it around to all councils.
No.
No.
No? Okay. Reminder for council, we got an Argo road maintenance meeting October 2nd.
Just before the council.
You'll text me, Sandy?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Reminder, please.
The old canteen that I sent you guys that email about has been moved down to Public Works. Looks awesome. They're already using it. And that's it for me, folks.
Okay, we'll move down to action items. Anything brought forward, the action items?
Chris, what about the handicap parking in front of the post office?
Oh, yeah, we got that last week.
Okay, what about it, Your Worship?
We need one. We don't have any handicap parking sign in front of the post office.
Oh.
No, we don't.
There's some lines that need to be paved after the paving, there's some lines that need to be put in there, and the handicap thing needs to be put in.
Yeah, I was gonna say, because I know there's a space where the little cutout divot thing is, but yeah, okay.
When they did the repair,
Yeah,
they took it out.
they took it out.
What
Okay.
about the museum? Do they have one?
Can we reach out to Peter Brothers to see if they can just patch a little bit more past the post office, because we got that water line there when it rains?
A little bit past the post office.
Well, where we paved it, and then you know where I'm talking about, Marlene, where Luke was dipping his,
Oh, his thing into the pond?
Yeah, there was a pothole there, a big pothole. So can we reach out to them and see if they can fill that hole?
Okay. I'll take a look tomorrow.
Okay, because they're doing that road there and they should be there for the next, another day or two.
Hole near the post office. Was that the one you mentioned to me the other day, Your Worship? You asked us to go just put some gravel and stuff in, or not the one?
No,
not-
that's another one.
That's not the one in front of the community church there, a different one?
No, it's a different one. There's one on, it's on the side of the community church is the one I'm talking about.
Yeah.
It's on the 50th Street that I told you about.
Yeah, and you got that one scheduled to do, but, okay, we'll
Yeah,
take a look.
49.
Okay. Okay,
Any other action items? Okay, we'll move on to capital and special projects. Any items you wish to discuss? No items wish to be discussed? Oh,
yeah.
And to take off the complete ones, please.
In October, they'll be gone.
go ahead.
Capital and special projects, we have a question about the cemetery on Mark Graves project that some counselors said they were gonna go walk through the cemetery and the snow's gonna fly pretty soon. And said counselors haven't gone yet? Have they?
No.
Are we gonna move that to next year?
So what else?
If I walk through
Too
there,
busy to do it.
if
What
I walk,
else is there to do? What other options?
Just,
Because this has been carrying on for quite a while.
You could mute her.
No, don't mute me. We will come alive.
Sounds like you to me.
if I walked through there, would there be anything done this fall, or would it all be done in the spring?
I don't think if we were able to identify what ones, you know, there actually were, and I think I mentioned it to you too, Councilor Smith, we've gone through the paper records and couldn't really identify any from the paper records.
Cecilia Papayu
Yeah.
is not marked.
Okay, and we don't know where she is, that's the.
It's marked in there, we've seen it.
Yeah, okay. So,
So that's one that we,
Yeah.
and what about your sister-in-law? Is it
Well,
marked
it's
properly?
marked, yeah.
Is
But
it marked?
It just wasn't in the binder.
Oh, okay.
okay,
But it, yeah.
There's two plots for Doris Seaman. She's buried in one and one is empty.
Oh,
okay. I think to actually get some kind of plats put together wouldn't take a ton of time. So,
if we had names.
if we had names and we knew the ones, so if there was half a dozen folks maybe or you know, plots that needed it, you know, we could have those done up fairly quickly.
Well, the map that the regional district gave you, Chris, is that those not say on there that they're unmarked graves with.
Nope. No, and that's part of the issue when we did it sort of in-house here at the office, was the maps just say who's in there, but somebody's gotta physically go up there and look at the plot to make sure what's on the map matches with what's on the ground.
But if they're unmarked, how do we match, how do we know there's somebody there? If it's marked, if they're marked, indicated on the thing, I think we should go with that. What do you think, Bernie?
whatever, you bark, you're the leader, and I have to follow you on this one.
The thing is, the way they're indicated on the map, okay, I will get back to you very shortly. Marlene will have a talk, yeah.
Okay.
I need a motion to go back past 9 o'clock.
I would make a
Point of
motion.
order, please.
Make the motion.
Second,
Second.
motion, all those agreed? Motion carried. Okay, Chris.
Thank you, Councilor Smith. I got one more then, just to bring up proactively too. What do you guys want us to do with these cameras?
Maybe found anybody that we can get a reasonable price?
The quotes are what they are, did we just cross them off the list? And
What were you talking about, Chris?
the security cameras, your worship,
Did you get quotes?
the quotes are what they were, so it was 12,017 if I'm not mistaken.
But who were the companies?
The one you sent me from Fort St. John and then that other company from Grand Prairie. The Fort St. John would be more expensive of the two.
But the Fort St. John one doesn't have those cameras anymore, they got a new upgrade of different cameras. So Shade never gave you another quote?
No.
Well, I'll be going on that boy tomorrow.
No.
So, what do you have plans here then?
It's up to you guys, you know, I don't know if it's something you still want us to pursue. It was in response to those post office break-ins, but we haven't had any instances of that happening since. It seemed to be an isolated incident, and council had felt that, you know, even the lower of the two quotes at 12,000 was a lot of money to spend on what seemed to maybe be an isolated incident. And I just need to know, folks, because at the end of the year, I got to report on the status of these projects to council, and if that's lingering there, well, it's going to affect our success rate. So if it's something you guys don't want to pursue, great. If it is, I can definitely get that wrapped up between now and the end of the year, but I need to know when.
You know, that's an issue I'm not entirely comfortable discussing with the council because it is a security issue, right? Let's just.
I second that.
Let's maybe.
I think we should discuss that in camera, because
Is there a section of in camera that would allow us to do that?
Security,
No.
village security.
Are we creating the position for a security? Well, we can, because we security first, we should be able to.
No, most of the sections of the community charter
Land,
are
labor.
closed.
But our bylaw officer business license, or business name says security on it. Maybe we should call him and put in town meeting and discuss it with him. See what he said.
Yes, we can.
Oh, Sandy says we can.
We can. The security of the property of the municipality.
Okay.
okay, can we table that to next?
We got a close
In
coming
camera.
up in,
Yeah.
Today?
yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
move that to the in camera, okay. Anything else on the capital and special projects?
No.
Anyone else? No. Okay, we'll carry on to council calendars. Anything to add or omit? Nothing, we'll move forward. Councillor Waite, your report?
I attended the meeting yesterday in the village office with DRC.
Well, what did you find out, Don?
What, with the RCMP?
Yeah.
What do you mean, what did I find out?
What did they tell you?
What about we weren't supposed to discuss it?
Okay.
It was a trick.
Yeah. Barbara's sitting there on the table wanting to know what's going on.
No? Okay, I am attending the regional district tomorrow, and I haven't attended any meetings on behalf of the village since the last council meeting. Council Hebert.
I'll get you a new one. You have nothing to report?
Okay. Councillor Grover.
Nothing on the museum, Brian?
Oh, they're having their tea.
What are they having?
They're having their harvest tea on Saturday. Are you gonna be there?
And also one for
I'm right
books.
now in Edmonton, so I don't know.
And Donna says wine for books.
Yes.
Okay. Councillor Grover.
The school board had a meeting, and on the agenda was the Bruce Goopy Elementary. They will be forwarding us a report. Thank you, Sandy. Really, with regards to the composition of the school board and the way that they have, pushed all the blame to the treasurer of the school board as to why we're not getting a
Bigger school?
bigger school, yeah, as opposed to a portable. That's, there's nothing going to change by going in and listening to the whole school board versus one person. I really think we need to rethink our strategy as a community to do something for our school. And with provincial politics and upcoming elections and UBCMs, this is something that we can definitely, the NDP has not been very nice to this community. So if we were to write a letter to the
Neither were the Liberals.
if we were to write a letter, yeah, but the Liberals haven't told us where to go. So if we were to write a letter to the other political parties explaining our situation and how unique it is, seeing that this community has been instrumental in providing and raising additional funds, huge amount of money to have that school built in the first place, and this is how the school board responds to this community, it's disgusting, it's a slap in the face, and we shouldn't stand for it.
And as a municipality, we've let them use our library, but they've been using our coat locker as the janitor room from day one because they put the new school in and didn't have a janitor's room.
Absolutely. We need to discuss a different tactic than going through the local school board because they're going by the numbers only. And, with the amount of money we have invested.
Somewhere else, Ken, it wasn't built. It was not a manufactured school made out of a manufactured place where the municipality decided what rooms were going where.
That's right.
They pulled that out of a little town and they put that school together.
Yeah,
And they also moved part of it somewhere else.
yeah.
Central.
A Band-Aid solution.
Yes.
Yeah, so I think we're better than that, and hopefully we can find someone to stand with us in down south. That's one issue.
You can lead the charge on that, Ken.
Absolutely, I'd love to.
So Ken,
Yes,
can you
Karen.
make some points there and Chris can put it together so I can have a little conversation with Rob for me on that?
Absolutely, yeah,
Okay.
yes.
The power outage that we had?
Northern BC.
Yes, wasn't that something? And I reminded my nephew across the street that in New York City, when they had their blackout, the population just skyrocketed 9 months later. So, we can have more students in that school, potentially.
5 years, 5 years.
6 years.
Well, it was a cold winter too.
There you go.
There.
Absolutely. I think as a council, something we didn't discuss today and something we need to discuss further is the whole TLE initiative and the treaty land entitlement. And if that's something where there's federal money available, whether or not we want to pursue that avenue or not.
Well, when we get back, Ken, some of those TOEs have to be in camera.
Absolutely, absolutely. But it is, the whole issue of TLE is public knowledge.
Not all the land, though.
Okay. There was a meeting with regards to the RCMP, and I have volumes of notes which I would love to share with you that I'm not allowed to, so. And then you've already covered the issue of the handicap parking for the post office, thank you very much. And if that can be extended to the museum as well, that'd be good. Tomorrow there is a meeting with the Oil and Gas Commission at 2 o'clock here at the village. And then we have a meeting coming up in October for Courtesy Matters. So things are starting to ramp up, it's starting to get interesting, and you know what, this is fun.
So the oil and gas commission's coming to the village office?
Yep, they'll be here, 2 o'clock.
Oh.
I'll be sure and
Representative?
give your condolences.
Yeah. Yeah, because I want to ask you some questions about, Dodo. Well, Chris will be there, so you could be asking those questions.
When was that book?
No.
Chris?
I don't remember when it was booked, your worship. Oh, Sam's got her hand up.
So this is a result of the last council meeting when BC Oil and Gas asked for somebody to be appointed as the liaison for the village.
That's Ken.
And everyone appointed Ken, so this meeting was set up between Ken and BC Oil and Gas, but they're coming here to do the meeting.
Good.
Sounds good.
But
Thank you.
That's why.
Is Chris sitting in on that?
Yes, he is, and so am I.
So Chris, can you talk face to face with them about that Dodo?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. What are you laughing about, Ken?
He's being a pain in the you-know-what right now.
He's normally is.
Oh, he's being a bigger one.
You just see the look that Sam.
Mayor McKinney?
Yeah, I went to the RCMP meeting.
Tell us about
I'm not talking about it. Everything's been going good. That's all I can say.
Is that everything?
Yeah.
Okay, we need a motion to move to in camera.
I'll make that motion.
Second?
I'll second.
Okay.
Thanks.